स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव। ओम गुरुदेव भगवान शिव शंकर भोलेनाथ कैलाशपति महाराज की जय, भगवान व्यास जी महाराज की जय, शंकराचार्य भगवान की जय, स्वामी चिन्मयानंद भगवान की जय, स्वामी दयानंद भगवान की जय, स्वामी प्रबुद्धानंद भगवान की जय, स्वामी शुद्धानंद भगवान की जय, साध्वी आनंद ज्योति जी की जय, माता पिता की जय, सभी गुरु देवताओं 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 की जय, सभी गुरु। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी, हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्रीमद् भगवद गीता चैप्टर नंबर 6, ध्यान योग। एंड इन ध्यान योग, in verse number 15, Bhagavan explains the ultimate end gained as a result of dhyana yoga, meditation. Till now, how meditation is done was explained by Bhagavan. So in verse number 15, Bhagavan says, let's try and recite the verse. युञ्जनेवं सदा आत्मनं योगी नियतमानसः शान्तिं निरवर्णापरमा मत्संस्थामधिगच्छति। युञ्जनेवं सदा आत्मनं योगी नियतमानसः शान्तिः निरावरण परमा मत संस्थाम अधिगच्छति। एवं युजुद एवं in this manner, sada, always, atma, the mind, yunjanaha, connecting, nitya atmana saha, the one whose mind is mastered, yogi, the meditator, nirvana paramam, that which is the ultimate liberation, mat samsthanam, that which is centered on me, shantim, the peace, adhigacchati, gains. What does he gains? Always connecting the mind in this manner. The meditator, the one whose mind is mastered, gains the peace which is centered on me, which is in the form of an absorption in me, which is the ultimate liberation. Here the word sada, always, may raise the question, when does the meditator have time for other activities such as eating, bathing and sleeping? Sada here simply indicates that the person does not waste time. Using whatever time is available for this particular pursuit, Atma here refers to the mind that is always connected in this manner. Yunjana eva sada atmanam, meaning in all the ways already described, starting from finding the place and preparing the seat, etc. From Swachha Deshe, Chaila Ajinam Kushtaram, the mind is connected, absorbed in Brahman, which is Parmeshwara, Paramatma, the Swarup of Atma. How does one connect the mind to the Swarup of or Atma? How does one connect the mind with Swarupa of Atma? Through contemplative words, Shabda, which is why words are so important. Through the words you can connect yourself to Atma. And what kind of words? In contemplation we make use of revealing words, words that reveal the Swarupa of Atma and thereby connecting the mind. Yunjana means meditating on connecting the mind, the Antakarana, to the object of meditation, which in fact is the act of meditating. In this verse, the person is again described as the one who has mastered the mind. See, Bhagwan is again and again and again and again saying, the one who has mastered the mind, whose mind is tranquil, absorbed, Niyata Manasa. And what does Niyata Manasa yogi again? Meditating, the person comes to understand properly what is being said. All that is taught becomes clear because there are no obstruction for the person. Therefore, the teaching becomes real and he or she gains Shanti. Shantim adhigacchati. The meaning of Shanti. What do you mean by Shanti? Shanti usually means peace. Does this mean that after doing meditation you will get out of it in the same peace that can be gained from tranquilizer or shot of something? बेहोशी में भी वही शांति मिलती है. Shanti is not that kind of peace. It is mata samastha, sanstha, and nirvana parama. In his commentary, Shankara defines Shanti as uparati. Uparati means resolution or sarva karma sannyasa, wherein doership and enjoyership are renounced, as discussed at length previously. Nirvana means moksha. Therefore, this is a Shanti that has its basis in moksha. It is moksha Shanti itself. And what is this moksha Shanti? There are three types of Shantis. Now let us understand. One Shanti is where there is no thinking whatsoever, which can be induced so that the frequency of thinking is cut down. Another Shanti is when you enjoy a Shanti along with certain capacity to manage an active mind. This is important because you need the mind in order to think. The first Shanti, which is freedom from thinking, can only be temporary and requires a lot of inducements. This Shanti is that which is there between two thoughts or between two spells of agitation. Whereas the second Shanti is there when there is certain distance between yourself and mind. Whatever be the situation, and because of this, you are able to manage your affairs with certain composure. The third Shanti is Moksha, wherein the mind becomes the privilege, becomes a privilege. Whatever the mind is, it is me, but I am not the mind. When you can take this, that mind is me, whatever, mind is me, but I am not the mind. This knowledge is the freedom, total freedom. I do not control the mind. I do not take the mind somewhere. Rather, wherever the mind goes, the person always has this knowledge. Then the person is truly a devotee, because wherever the mind is, where there the Lord is for this person. To express this knowledge based devotion, there are many stories. One such story is about a great devotee of Lord Shiva. One day he came and found a sadhu sleeping with his feet placed on a linga, Shiva linga. For anyone to do such a thing, let alone sadhu, is desecration. Therefore the devotee shouted angrily at the sadhu, "Wake up, how dare you put your feet on the linga, Shiva linga?" To this the sadhu replied, "I am very old, I am tired and sleepy, I have no strength to move my feet. Therefore please put my feet wherever you want, I cannot lift them." Then the devotee picked up the sadhu's feet and moved them away from the linga. But to his surprise, another linga appeared under the sadhu's feet. Confused, he moved the sadhu's feet again. But wherever he placed them, yet another linga appeared in that very place. Then he understood that there is no place where the Lord is not. In other words, there is no place to put one's feet that is not the Lord. Similarly, wherever the mind goes, it remains in the Lord's presence. Therefore, there is no question of getting the mind out of or into anything here. To make this point, a seeker in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad said, "It is as though the mind has gone away, and therefore I am as though meditating." For the as though gone away mind, as though meditation is good enough. And even the as though becomes clear to you, then the mind does not go away and therefore does not require any meditation. This is the Shanti called Nirvana Parama Shanti, Moksha. The Shanti that is one's Swarupa, in which there is no coming and going, no degree of variation, and for which no comparison to anything is possible. Moksha is in knowledge, knowing, recognizing, removing the error. Swarupa, this is to be understood. Swarupa Shanti, the Shanti that is oneself. This is the only Shanti required. When you are with yourself, when I am with myself, that is the Shanti. Being with anything else is Ashanti. without knowing, without understanding, without going into the Shastra, you will be always with the objects. Because this Shanti is identical with oneself, Krishna described it as Mata Samasta, meaning Mata Adhina. Mata Adhina. That which always obtains in the Paramatma. Because Paramatma does not move at any time. It is Kutastha, immutable. It does not get involved with anything and does not stand opposed to anything either. If there is opposition, there is some rub or resistance, which is Ashanti. Shanti is identical with Paramatma in that it is not opposed to thought. It is not opposed to the world. It is not opposed to the knowledge. It is not opposed to the ignorance. It is not opposed to anything. At the same time, it lends itself to everything. Thus, the meditator gains this Shanti, freedom or liberation. Mata adhinam Shantim adhigacchati. Nirvana Parama Shanti does not depend upon the conditions of the mind, whereas Shanti depends on one's mental state, is always subject to becoming disturbed. Here Atma is called Shanta because it is description, a lakshana revealing the nature of Atma. This must be clearly understood. Shanti is not something that sticks to Atma as an attribute, like the blue of the blue pot. The attribute Visheshana distinguishes an object from all other objects belonging to the same species. Otherwise, attributes are not required. For example, if all pots were blue, you would not need to use the word blue. Attribute by definition can be perceived. When we say Atma is a Shanta, the Shanti is an Atma. Shanti in Atma is not something that is previsible, but the word itself points out to the nature of Atma. Therefore, it is Lakshana, not an attribute of Atma. Shanti is not an adjective of Atma. It is the quality of Atma. Shant. Because there is no movement, there is no distraction. That is why peaceful mind is required, where there is no distraction. The condition of the mind is agitation and superimposition on Atma, which is Chaitanya, consciousness, that which obtains in all conditions and is independent, free of all condition. Word like Shanta negate the superimposition, revealing the Swarupa of Atma as independent. As independent of Ashanti, that is superimposed upon Atma. When we say Atma is Ashanta, therefore this Shanti is not conditional Shanti. It is a Swarupa Shanti because it is not conditional. It is a Swarupa. Atma is free from any form of vritti. Thought, even though vrittis are not free from Atma. When vrittis happen and there is an appreciation of Atma as Aham Shanta, the vrittis do not disturb the Shanta Atma. This is what is meant by Nirvana Parama Shanti, that is purely in form of knowledge, recognition. The one who recognizes oneself as Paramatma and understand the Swarupa Shanti of Paramatma is said to have gained this because he or she has gained the knowledge Such a person is called yogi here. Not in terms of eightfold yogas called Ashtanga Yoga, but purely in terms of knowledge alone. In the next verse, Krishna points out certain other condition that makes life contemplation possible. We'll go through this to understand the discipline of eating and sleeping required for meditation. There are certain disciplines required. Let's read the verse. नादे अशान्तः तु योगः अस्ति न च एकान्तम् अनशन्तः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव च अर्जुन अर्जुना ओ अर्जुना atyashantah, for one who eats too much, tu indeed yoga na asti, meditation is not, cha and na ekantam anasannat, not for the one who does not eat at all, cha and na atiswana shilasya, not for the one who sleeps too much, cha and eva indeed na jagratah, not for the one who is always awake. Meditation is not for one who eats too much or for one who does not eat at all, or indeed Arjuna, it is for one who sleeps too much or who is always awake. Sleeping and eating discipline is required. Here Krishna mentions the discipline with reference to eating required for meditation. He does not go into details but makes the point that extremes in terms of the quantity of food eaten are not conducive to meditation. Later he also talks in general way about what one should and should not eat from the standpoint of sattvic, rajasic and tamasic aspect of food. Only certain quantity of food is acceptable to a person. Beyond that one should not eat if one wants to meditate. Krishna here says that for the one who overeats or the one who hardly eats, that there will be no meditation, no yoga, even though there may be bhoga, enjoyment, at least for the time being, and if there is too much bhoga, roga, disease may also follow, just as it may for the one who eats too little. Yoga is the opposite of bhoga and roga. Roga means diseases. For the one who is a bhogi or a rogi, a life of meditation and contemplation is not possible. Yoga nasti is not possible, sir. Here meditation refers to Saguna Brahma Dhyana. The contemplation refers to Nirguna Brahma Dhyana, as discussed earlier. In his commentary of this verse, Shankaracharya ji quotes from the Veda, indeed the food that is acceptable to oneself in quantity and quality will protect, nourish, it will not destroy the person. The food that is more destroys, that which is less does not protect. Food eaten in the proper quantities will not bring about the diseases and that destroy a person who habitually overeats. No specific amount of food is prescribed. One eats only to one's own known limit. Similarly, if one does not take enough food, the food eaten will not nourish the person. It will not destroy the person, but it will not provide the necessary nourishment either. Thus one who overeats, atayasan sanat, the one who undereats, anasanta, anasanat, will not be fit for meditation. The yogi discussed here is a person who neither overeats nor undereats. He or she eats only what the stomach allows. Shankaracharya ji quotes a vakya concerning the quality of food to be taken. Aradham asnaya savyana jnanasya tartiyam udkayasya cha vayoho sancharanartham tu chaturtham. Half the stomach is for solid food. The third quarter is for water or other liquids. And the fourth quarter is to be left empty so that there is enough space for churning take place during the digestive process. For those who cross these boundaries, there will be no meditation. Naturally, a person who does not eat enough will be tired and will not be able to sit for meditation, and the person who eats too much will be sleepy. There will be a problem. So there has to be measure applied to the food that one eats. But people do not ask, Swamiji, how do I know when I have filled half the stomach? When you feel like having another helping, don't just stop eating. Don't. Just stop eating. That's all. The discipline of sleep. This is again equally important to the discipline required in terms of the amount of food one eats, is discipline in terms of the amount of sleep one gets. There are people who sleep so much that even when they are awake, they are sleepy. So much that even this oversleeping goes along with overeating and lack of exercises. Atiswapanasila yoga nasti. For one who oversleep, there is no meditation. Nor is there meditation for the person who deprives his or her sleep to meditate. Having heard that 4 a.m. in the morning is the best time to meditate, if a person goes to bed at midnight and gets up at 4 a.m. to meditate, the meditation becomes sleep in no time. The person will sleep. In the past, when there was no electricity and people went to bed soon as it was dark, getting up at 4 a.m. was natural. But now the situation is quite different. In fact, there are people who wake up, go to work, and their lives after dark. So for one who does not get adequate sleep, who is awake all the time, Jagrata, there is no yoga. Because having so little sleep, the person will be sleepy at all the time. The unfortunate thing here is that both types of people, those who sleep too much and those who sleep too little, end up sleeping. So Krishna says here there is no yoga, no contemplative life for either of them. How then is the yoga to take place, and for whom? The answer is given in next verse. Dhyan yoga is for the one who follows the life of discipline. This is very important. This we will see tomorrow. It's a long chapter. It will take time. These are all disciplines. How one should sit, on with what one should sit, what should be the height, how much should he eat, how less should he eat, how sleep. All these are disciplines. Very important to know. One must understand these, but they should be understood quickly and over, so that you can actually meditate. Actual meditation can take place. They are part of meditation to begin. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. शांति शांति हरि ओम तत्सत. ओम गुरुभ्यो नमः. ओम